Liam, David mentioned before that Chelsea may well be interested in Felix. Your colleague Simon Johnson's written a piece that's on The Athletic that mentions Fernandez, Bellingham, Mac Allister, and there's yet more where that came from as well. It's going to be a busy month for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chelsea had significant surgery to do on the squad post takeover last summer. And given the way a lot of that spending has panned out so far, I don't think you'd look at Chelsea's squad and say it's much further along. And in particular, everyone at Stamford Bridge is keenly aware that they need a midfield succession plan. In particular, you have N'Golo Kante out of contract at the end of the year. Of course, we've reported that there's been positive progress towards an extension there, but Chelsea know they can't rely on him to play every week anymore. Jorginho may well not be at the club next season, and he's been so fundamental to Chelsea's midfield identity since 2018. So they need something big, and that's why they're looking at big things, whether it's in this window with possibly Enzo Fernandez or the summer. We know that they are in the Bellingham sweepstakes. I'm not sure they're at the front, but they are very much looking at sort of midfield conductors and just high level all round midfielders, as they're looking for a new balance and a new identity in that area of the pitch.
David, how close are they to adding to their squad, Chelsea?
Yeah, just on Felix, I would say that Chelsea are not front runners, because if they are going to bring in a central striker, it would probably be a more penalty box poacher, as we're being told, rather than that sort of false nine guy who can play across the front line. But let's see on that. As I said, it will come down to the price. Chelsea's mix, as Simon makes clear in this piece around midfield, it depends largely on the other clubs in this merry-go-round, because many of them are interested in or chasing the same names. So Enzo Fernandez is the player who Chelsea are really prioritising at the moment. However, they won't do so at any cost. They have a valuation. We're being told that they don't want to go to the figures that are being bandied around, which is essentially his release clause of 127 million euros. They believe that's far above the market value on what's a relatively small sample size of games, the World Cup and a handful of matches for Benfica. But they do really like him. They love him, and he's a player they would like to sign on their conditions, and they're not going to be held to ransom on that. There's a lot of agendas at play in this market, and that's why a lot of the stories around him have come out publicly. It's in the interest of people to get that figure as high as possible. If Chelsea can get it at the value that they want, then I think they'll do the deal now or in the summer, or if they have to wait until the summer, if they do something now for the summer, or if they walk away completely, then they will, as far as we know. And that's because they have other options. The Jude Bellingham race is one, as Simon says, is one, as Liam says, they're in. However, how far in, we don't know, because Jude Bellingham is likely to be a summer transfer. He'll have his pick of the clubs. It will largely be down to his decision, and then up to the club who he chooses to meet the price. And you suspect that, given his unique talent, the interested parties will all be prepared to go there, whether it be Real Madrid, Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, or anybody else. Indeed, if the move is not right for him, he and his family are confident enough and calm enough, from what we hear, to decide to stay. But I do think a move is starting to look likely for him. Elsewhere in the Chelsea mix, you've got Declan Rice, who they retain admiration for. You've got Moises Caicedo, they like at Brighton. You've got Romeo Lavia, who they made an inquiry for on deadline day last summer. Alexis Mac Allister in the mix. That's come out in the media as well, although reports of it being a deal worth potentially £60 million, we're told Chelsea place a valuation on him around £30 to £40 million. And the word from Stamford Bridge is that they're going to be disciplined in their recruitment, despite all of these stories and all of these names and all of this hype, which is coming because they are speaking to clubs, they are speaking to agents, they are in this market with both feet. But it doesn't mean they're going to spend all of the money that's being talked about. And another thing to say is that they'll look to retain where possible as well, whether that's Kovacic. There have been suggestions that they're desperate to tie him down to a new deal. And Kante, who we revealed recently, talks over a new contract and now moving in a positive direction, whereas it seemed he might well go as a free agent in next summer, which is still a possibility, given that from the 1st of January, he was able to negotiate with overseas clubs on a pre-contract agreement. But I think they definitely want to keep him if the terms are right. He's very happy there. He's a popular figure. And so the sense we're getting is that there's optimism he will renew, and that will ease the desperation to bring in new midfielders. We do expect Chelsea to bring in at least one midfielder via the market, whether it be now and or in the summer.
I hope everyone's keeping up. Liam, you've got to write about all this as well every week.
And that's just one position.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to check whether you've heard this, David, that Chelsea have asked Brighton if they can buy the words "and Hove Albion" as well. In addition to half of their squad. It's expected to be another very busy month, and we were already beginning to hear noises towards the end of the World Cup, largely regarding younger players. We've already seen the David Datro Fofana deal has been done. Chelsea will sign Andre Santos from Vasco as well. He's not the midfielder David's talking about, I don't think, but he's another one of these young. He's another one of these young elite projects that the Bowley Clear Lake ownership have prioritised since coming in. So there's kind of a twin recruitment track running at the moment. There's the first team signings that they're looking to make, but also these exciting young players that they feel are good bets for the future.
Can I just start?
Oh, go on, David.
Can I just ask Liam what he thinks Chelsea might do, if anything, on the right back position? A lot of fans post Reece James injury setback saying we need to recruit. And we reported last summer the interest in Denzel Dumfries, although I suspect it's going to take huge money to lure him from Inter Milan, and he would want to come in as a first choice wherever he goes rather than a bit part player. But do you think Chelsea will recruit in that position or not quite the priority as we've seen in, say, central defence and midfield and attack?
I think the impression we've got so far is it isn't the most urgent priority. The most urgent priority at Chelsea is getting Reece James fit and keeping him on the pitch because he's the most important footballer in the squad. It's a very difficult sell, I think, to go to players, particularly very good right backs to right wing backs, and say, come and be Reece James' backup. He'll play whenever he's fit. It reminds me a bit of when Tottenham were going into the market trying to find a backup striker for Harry Kane. And obviously James has got a more checkered injury record than Kane, but it's a similar sort of principle where really good players, top tier targets like Denzel Dumfries, as David says, they're not going to come in and be squad players at best and bench warmers at worst. They're going to come in and expect to start most games. And so you want someone ideally who can do a kind of passable lower tier impression of James. And that's not easy because I think he's a very unique footballer, but at least do the sort of basic requirements of that position in the system. And I think the problem they've got at the moment is that Cesar Azpilicueta is probably not at the stage of his career where he can do that anymore. He looks like he's only really a viable option at this point as the right-sided centre-back in a back three. That seems to be the only position where he can survive athletically, and we saw that again against Nottingham Forest. So they do have an immediate need in that area, but it's quite difficult to address that need.
Don't forget the buyback clause on Tino Livramento, although I think that may be a summer one more than now.